Okay, welcome everybody. Can you hear me in the back? Thank you for being patient. I was told the meeting would start 10 minutes later, so some more people could join up from downstairs. So let's get going. The topic of today is external database integration in Mendix. I'm Roland. I'm a senior data engineer, or just software engineer, if you'd like to call that. And at Mendix, I've been working for Mendix for 1.5 years now. I've been in software engineering for 15 years. So 10% of the time I've been working for Mendix. Before we get going, I'd like to introduce the team, because what we've been working on has really been a team effort. I'm the presenter, but this has really been a team effort. And I'd like to show the team. Just a sec. Let's go to the browser. There we are. Can you see it in the back? I'm Roland, and there's Jonathan, and Ishan, and Yevgen. They're all here. You can see the country of origin and the year that they joined Mendix. So why external database integration? What do you mean? I mean, Mendix already integrates with databases, right? Well, that's what I would call internal database integration. The Mendix database is has a very specific use case. It's a domain database used specifically for storing data that you generate in a Mendix app. But there's huge amounts of data that exist in current databases outside of Mendix. And wouldn't it be really nice if Mendix could just access that without too much fuss, without you having to go through, jump through some hoops to try to synchronize that data from the external database into an existing Mendix application where it has to conform to all the domain model constraints, etc. Well, the data that you see here is actually already from an external database. I'll show you. One sec. Shall I make this a bit bigger? Let's see if the zooming works. Yeah, it does. See, this is exactly the same data that you saw in the app, in the demo app that I made. But this time, it comes from a Postgres database. Oh, now I see I'm accidentally using the wrong instance. That would spoil the demo, so I will close this. And yeah, here it is. It's a Postgres database running on the relational database service of Amazon. And I could say, yeah, okay, it's Postgres, you support Postgres. Maybe that's what you use in the Mendix app. So I'll show you the Mendix app I have. And I'm using a local MariaDB database. So this data really comes from an external database, and I've imported it in a way that I'll explain later into Mendix. So the way I thought I will approach this is by having a bit of a hands-on live demoing, where for me as presenter, I'll take you through the steps one by one, and let's see how far we get. So let's create a completely new project. I'll just use the Mendix theme, that doesn't matter. And I'm calling it the MX World 2016 app. Hopefully the name doesn't exist yet on my local PC. No, good. Let's wait until it initializes. Oh, I should not have done team server project. But too late now. That might take a while. Okay, there it goes. Hopefully it doesn't take too long. I'll also just do it again without team server. Can I wait? Okay, I think we're in business now. Okay, here it is. Yeah, so how do we get started? How are we going to know about this external database? Well, it basically involves two steps. And the first one is that you need a JDBC driver that is specific to the database that you want to integrate with. So in this case, over here, I have some prepared JDBC drivers. This is PostgreSQL. I will copy it. Let me see. This application in the user lib directory right here. Okay, copied. So what's next? Well, we're going to import the database connector from the App Store. It's a new module. It currently only resides in the private App Store, but you can also find it on GitHub. It's been open sourced under an Apache license. Let me see, App Store, database connector. Not that one. That one, database connector. There it is. See, that's a screenshot, there's documentation, and here's the GitHub URL. You can find it on in the Mendix repository under database connector. Okay, now I'm going to download this, add as a new module. Successful. So as a recap, what did we do? We imported the database connector module and we added the database-specific JDBC driver to the user lib directory. As I said, I don't think I mentioned that. The database connector is currently in beta. We don't consider it ripe for production usage yet. That's why it's still in the private App Store. But if you really want to play with it, you can find it in the GitHub open source repository that you see there in the URL over there. It comes with its own connection pool. It uses the Hikari open source project. So it's multi-user ready. And you might have heard during one of the other talks or keynotes that we now have a connector toolkit. And we're using this connector toolkit for the database connector module to automatically expose it as Microflow actions in the toolbox. And it was actually the screenshot that you saw up here. Here is the database connector, and there's two actions in there, execute query and execute statement. And technically, they're actually Java actions, but exposed at a slightly higher level, so they're easier to work with. Now, what's the difference between these two actions? The execute query action is really meant for queries that return a result. So, yeah, the obvious use case is for select statements, but there are some other SQL constructs like stored procedures that are called in a select, which also should be included under this category. And the other action is the execute statement, and those are SQL statements that modify data. So like data definition language constructs like create table, modify table, data manipulation language constructs like insert data, alter data. All that goes under execute statement. And I'll come back to it later, but execute statement actually doesn't really return a result. Okay, let's see how we configure such an SQL query in a Microflow. So I'll go back to my little demo project. I'll add a Microflow. Retrieve team data, because that's what we're going to do. Now, In the lower left, you can see the toolbox, and if I scroll down, then yes, there they are, the query and execute statement actions in the database connector. So this one I can drag and drop here, but that's not enough. What you should do first, actually, is, of course, you're going to execute an SQL statement, a select query, and it's going to return a result set. And result sets are attributes which have certain data types and values. And of course, we have to map this to a Mendix object, which is used in the execute query. So what you have to think about is, and I'll explain later what our future ideas is about to make this easier, but for now, you have to create an MPE and kind of mentally map the data types that you expect to data types that are used in Mendix. So if you go back to the original query in PostgreSQL, I think I closed that one, so I'll probably have to do it again. Okay. Can I, yeah, create scripts. Oh, here it is. That's what I was looking for. Okay. So, that's a very simple query. And down here you can see the data types that are used in Postgres. There's 2 text columns and 1 integer. So we're going to map the text to strings, I think, and the integer can remain an integer. Name, country, and year. Okay, here's my domain model. I'm going to create a non-persistent entity here with 3 attributes. Name is a string, that's fine. Country, another string. And finally, year. And that should be an integer. Where are you? Oh, here. Okay, well that's it. This is going to be our result object. Maybe I'll give it a nice name. Let's call it select result entity. Okay. Moving back to our Microflow. We're going to instantiate this NPE, create object, select the NPE we just created. Okay, it gives us a default name, that's okay. Okay, now let's get to the meat of it. These are the parameters that you have to use to have a successful query. Basically, it's a JDBC URL and the credentials, the username and the password. Those are the things that always remain the same in most cases. So usually you'll put them in constants, but right now I'll just type them here as is. And the SQL is the SQL we'd like to execute. Well, in this case, select star from team. And result object, that's the one that we just created. I think it was called new select result entity. Yeah, there it is. Now I have to copy and paste the URL that's used in Amazon from over here. Modify. No. Oh wait, this is the driver, introduce the alias, because that's already predefined. There it is. Okay. It's a string, so I should put single quotes around it. Did I make a mistake? Yeah, another one. Okay, username, Mendix, if I'm correct. And password, Mendix password. It's not so secret. And this is my query. Select star from team. It doesn't need a semicolon because it's only one statement. Well, let's call this team data. Well, that should do it, I think. So how do we see what it does? Well, I'll get to that later. Let's go back to the slides first. So this is basically what we did. We added an SQL query result entity as MPE and one persistent entity to the main model. Created a new Microflow with the create object action for that MPE. We direct the execute query action in the toolbox to the Microflow. And then in the action, we set the JDBC URL, database credentials, SQL query, and NPE. So now let's see if we can visualize this. Let me save it before I forget. Here's the home page. We just delete whatever is there. And I'll just add a data grid, which will connect to that specific Microflow that I created. Right here. Retrieve team data. There's one error. And what's that error? It does not return a list, so I probably made a mistake here. Ah, yeah, I forgot the return type here. Okay, that's easy to fix. We have a list of type this one. And the actual instantiation is team data. And what am I doing wrong? No attributes specified. Ah, right, yeah, because, okay, I'll do it again, because it was not able to infer the attributes from the Microflow, because there was no return type, so I'll just re-add the Microflow. Now it says, do you want to automatically fit the contents of the data grid? Yes, please. So it's going to add name, country, and year to the data grid. This is actually similar to what you saw in the original app. Now there's no more errors, so well, let's just run local. Yeah, thanks. Run local. Otherwise, it will try to deploy it in the sandbox. Might take a little while. Yeah, we just use the default database for this one, doesn't matter. Okay, well, let's see. I hope I'm not being bitten by the demo effect. I am. Let's see what it is I did wrong. Ah, yeah, it's cloud security is enabled. Okay, that's a common mistake I still make. I think it's in the configuration here. Yeah, switch it off. Okay, run again. Okay, refresh. Ta-da! There we are. So, okay, we managed to get the external data into Mendix. Yeah. So as I said, you have to consider, the select query we'd like to execute, and I model the select result as an MPE, and this is something we're still working on because this is not very user-friendly and very easy to make mistakes. But thankfully, the integration team has been working on generic model mapping, so we're thinking of using that before we really release the database connector from Mendix 7, either via JSON mapping or otherwise. That's still under consideration. So don't worry too much about that aspect of the database connector. Restarting the episode is necessary after adding in a new JDBC driver. Everything else you do does not require that. And as I said, best practice is to use constants for JDBC URL and database credentials. So yeah, basically integrating with a new external database only requires a JDBC driver and a Java action or a database connector action configuration before you can get started. Okay, you saw the execute query, which does select queries. Also like to dig into the other part of the database connector, which is the execute statement. And maybe I'll make it bigger. Is that working? Oh, no, not that one. Okay, so I have to do it manually. He didn't like my, okay. Yeah, it looks quite similar at first to the execute query. But the real difference is there is no result. There's no result object parameter here, if you remember. Is the mouse working? Yeah, over here. And the return type by default is integer long, because when you alter rows in the database, it will return the number of rows that are altered, but it won't return